All right, man, peace. You know, brothers, over the course of life, many of us are going to develop close relationships with people, whether it be family members, friends, or even significant others. And sometimes y'all have little hiccups in your relationships, and sometimes you even fall out. And many times when you fall out with people or have hiccups in your rapport or relationship with them, they start to try to troll you or even become a quote-unquote hater of yours. And that's kind of the situation that we're seeing transpire between Kevin Durant and Kendrick Perkins. Now, Kendrick Perkins is a dude who is starting to make quite a name for himself in the sports analysis world as someone who is going to say whatever is on the tip of his tongue. However he feels, he's going to try to sensationalize it, add a little bit of barbecue sauce on it, and then spew it out to the public to see how many retweets he can get or how many responses he can get, because it's very clear that he's trying to make a name for himself. But he has to be very, very careful, because he's been speaking very sloppy about people and things in the last few months, and it might come back to bite him. And the latest story that Kendrick Perkins has found himself involved in is this Kyrie Irving storyline. And of course, he's jumped on Kyrie, and there are other components of the Kyrie Irving narrative that I'm going to be addressing in other videos, especially pertaining to his sentiment that so-called blacks should start their own league, and the response to that sentiment, which reveals quite a lot in my view. But in this video, we're going to be covering the component of Kevin Durant, who is one of Kyrie Irving's good friends. Some members of the media say that they're best friends. I don't know how they would know that unless Kevin Durant and or Kyrie come out and say it, but they are relatively good friends, or appear to be at least. So this is why this is going to be an entry into the Woke Wars series, because right now what we're watching transpire is normally what occurs whenever there's a flare-up in quote-unquote black consciousness. And these flare-ups happen every 10 to 15 years. It's almost like a fad, where so-called black people decide that they're going to immerse themselves in their quote-unquote blackness, which basically is just a pseudonym for their attempt to concoct a fake culture, because our people, for the most part, do not know their real culture or their real history, so they have to make shit up. Right now, we're in the midst of one of the most potent manifestations or flare-ups of quote-unquote black consciousness that has been provided for our people and encouraged by the Democratic Party, aka the Marxist Party of the United States. So that's why there's so much confusion, and there's going to be more, especially over the course of this summer, leading up to the election in November. Kendrick Perkins has said a lot of inflammatory things about Kyrie Irving, a lot of it to protect his Fingali, LeBron James. LeBron is always behind the curtain, trying to puppeteer certain things and make sure that he maintains his supremacy and his preeminence in not only the NBA, but also the quote-unquote black consciousness circles, because it's good for business that he has the fake image of being a quote-unquote pro-black. LeBron James is not for his people as much as he is for liberalism. And there's some obfuscation there. There's some murkiness there when it comes to the understanding of the difference between a liberal black and a quote-unquote legitimate pro-black. A legitimate so-called pro-black is for their people. Now, most pro-blacks don't know anything about their history either. They just mishmash everything. But at least they have an understanding of the importance of the family structure. The liberal black will act as if they care about their people, but in reality, they're taking all of their cues from the liberal Caucasian. So they're going to endorse things like homosexuality, lesbianism, transgenderism, feminism, and most importantly, globalism, which is really what this entire George Floyd ritual is about. It's an alchemical ritual to once again try to get so-called black people, particularly the so-called black man, to believe that you're now welcomed in amongst all races. And it's a red herring. So anyway, we're just going to get back to how this portion of the NBA woke conscious movement has developed between Mr. Kendrick Perkins and Mr. Kevin Durant. Of course, they're going to talk about it. I'm going to chime in.
Guys, like you mentioned, we got some drama in the NBA. The online feud between Kendrick Perkins and Kevin Durant continued yesterday after Perk called Kyrie's
Once again, Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant, 99.9% of the time that you see them in the arena, they're either going to be wearing all black or black and white. So it's very obvious that they're both hermeticists, they're both alchemists, and they're trying to elevate up the levels of understanding towards illumination or quote-unquote enlightenment. They consider themselves wizards, or at least they're on that pathway. Kobe Bryant was one of the higher ranking members before he was ritualistically removed. Michael Jordan is the highest ranking member. That's why he will always be known as the quote unquote GOAT or Saturn.
Cancel the rest of the NBA season, a quote distraction, and later added that even calling Kyrie a bird brain would be giving him too much credit. This led KD to fire back and call Perkins a quote sellout in an Instagram comment.
Yeah, there was no need for all of that. Kendrick Perkins goes way too far, especially for a guy who basically was a traffic cone while he was in the NBA. And no matter how many truths he tells, and Shannon Sharp is going to touch on this over the course of this segment, but no matter how many truths Kendrick Perkins tells or thinks he's telling, there does have to be an understanding that since you were pretty much a role player in the NBA, there's a certain amount of respect that you should have for the star players or superstar players and what they're trying to do, because at the end of the day, Kendrick Perkins did not have the clout to do anything.
What do you think KD means here?
Yeah, what he's saying is that
what KD's basically saying is, Kendrick Perkins, you're coming out of your mouth too much in a disrespectful way and making personal attacks on people that really you should show much more respect towards. As I may have already stated a few months ago during the Last Dance documentary, or really about a month or so ago, during the Last Dance documentary, Kendrick Perkins stated that Michael Jordan proved himself to be a liar and a snitch. It's like, bro, calm the fuck down. Now, we know that behind the scenes, LeBron James is playing his normal passive-aggressive role where in front of the camera he's talking about how much Michael Jordan inspired him. But off camera and behind the curtain, he's telling his plants in the industry, go out there and say some incendiary things about Jordan. Because right now this propaganda piece is slaughtering me in the quote-unquote GOAT conversation. So I need you to put some propaganda out there so that I can try to maintain a foothold. That's obviously what was occurring behind the scenes. But the way in which Kendrick Perkins came out of his mouth about Michael Jordan was so disrespectful. It's like, bro, there were certain portions in your career, Kendrick Perkins, where you were making $7-8 million a year to average 5 points, 4 rebounds. Do you know why you were allowed to make that much money? It's because Michael Jordan globalized the NBA. Show some fucking respect.
Perk played in the NBA, so he kind of knows how the inner workings go. And now Perk is on the other side. He's in the media. Players that play with Perk or currently playing think that Perk should just be quiet, be vanilla, protect their interests. Don't.
Or maybe just be professional. Just be professional, bruh. Okay, you disagree with Kyrie and Kyrie's stance. Say why and move forward. All the personal attacks on national television, is that really necessary?
Anything negative. Perk, you know you're a player. So anybody that does what we do, that played the game, that's not complimentary. Always they sell out. They don't know what they're talking about. You weren't that good. Well, what did you ever win? And that's what they always use. And if you notice, every time KD fires at Perk, he always takes a shot at him. Well, you only have.
Did he really take a shot at him, or did he just respond to the shot that Kendrick Perkins took at Kyrie? At the end of the day, that is Kevin Durant's friend, and that is his teammate.
Points and 3 rebounds as our center. Yada, yada, yada. Okay, which is abundantly clear.
A lot of air balls.
A lot of air balls. Kendrick Perkins was not, is not, will never be, will never has been the player that Kevin Durant or.
Kendrick Perkins is arguably the least skilled and least athletic big man in the history of the NBA. And that is not hyperbole. He's arguably the least skilled and least athletic big man in the history of the NBA.
Or any other of the top players. But that's okay. That's not to diminish that he doesn't know what he's talking about. What they're upset about is that they're not denying that Kyrie said this. They're asking Perk, why are you putting this out there? Why?
No, sir. What they're saying is, why are you trying to levy these ad hominem attacks on Kyrie? Disagree, but be professional about it. That's what they're saying.
Putting this on. Kyrie had no problem going back and playing. Now, this is what Perk is saying. He had no problem going.
That's what Perk and Matt Barnes are saying, and they're most likely getting that from LeBron James and or Chris Paul.
And play. As long as he was going to be allowed to go down in the bubble, sit on the bench, and cheer his teammates on. Once the NBA says, nah, you're not going to be able to do that, all of a sudden he didn't want to play and didn't want anyone else to play.
Well, how could you quantify that or qualify that when the fact of the matter is that we know for a fact that Kyrie Irving has been interacting with Mr. Steven Jackson, someone who's been saying the exact same thing, that NBA players should not be playing. But you'll notice, once again, they're making no mention of Steven Jackson and his role in this George Floyd narrative on television. It's not like Kyrie Irving made these statements out of nowhere. It's a proven fact. Steven Jackson has said this himself, that he's been communicating with Kyrie, and it's a proven fact that, once again, Steven Jackson is against the NBA continuing their season. So this notion that, Kyrie just came with this out of nowhere once he realized that he was not allowed to go down into the bubble, that's not really making any sense. That sounds like something that LeBron James fanboys in the media are trying to concoct to link this up with some quote-unquote conspiracy theory that Kyrie Irving is trying to stop LeBron from winning a 4th championship. That's really what this seems to boil down to me, is that a lot of LeBron James's homeboys in the media, a lot of his sycophants in the media, are trying to link Kyrie Irving up to this conspiracy to stop LeBron from winning a 4th championship, when there's more than enough tangible evidence to prove that Kyrie Irving is coming from a legitimate place, because he does have connections with someone who himself says that the NBA should not continue playing. And beyond that, we know that the 100 players who are on the conference call with Kyrie also seem to have the same viewpoint as Kyrie, that being that they don't want to play either. It's not like Kyrie's out there on a limb by himself. So he's representing a certain component, a certain portion, a certain percentage of the NBA players.
So, and plus, Perk and KD kind of got a history going back, Skip. Perk said Russ is the best Oklahoma City Thunder player in history.
And Perkins knew exactly what the impact of that statement was going to be. That's why he said it.
He also said that KD took the coward's way out, going to link up with Golden State and winning titles that way.
Well, we know the reason why Perkins said that is because he's Team Westbrook. Most of the things that Kendrick Perkins says is because of his personal associations off camera. So when you combine the fact that Kendrick Perkins is Team Westbrook as well as the fact that he's Team LeBron, if you're KD, of course you're no longer going to trust anything that Kendrick Perkins says, because he's coming at you from the vantage point of being someone who is aligned with two people who are kind of your professional adversaries now.
They kind of had a contentious adversarial relationship.
Also notice that Kendrick Perkins tends to say a lot of incendiary things or non-complimentary things about Stephen Curry, who we know also has a history with Westbrook as on-court rivals.
That point, Perk doesn't back down. Perk is not going to back down. What I would advise, Skip, when I try to talk about a player, I try to keep his intellect out of it. I know maybe Perk was just saying that in jest, that if Kyrie had a bird had Kyrie brains, it would fly backwards. Maybe
That was a good line, but that's not something that you say on TV. I mean, give me a break. Especially in the quote-unquote atmosphere that we're in. You're a so-called black man and you get on TV and you attack the intellect or the purported intellect of another so-called black man just because you disagree with him. Do you not grasp why that's something that you probably should not do?
I don't think Kyrie has a diminished capacity or anything like that.
No, Kyrie just thinks outside of the box. If you can accuse Kyrie of anything, it's saying too much of his thoughts in real time, when he should take his time, sit back, keep many of his thoughts to himself, and figure out who's on his level of comprehension, and then they can work out these thoughts to a solution. And I'm going to be addressing that in the video that I do on Kyrie Irving saying that blacks should have their own league, their own basketball association. Because that's the one mistake that he made. He was speaking three-dimensionally to a bunch of two-dimensional niggas. And that's something that you only learn as you mature, is that most black people actually really do want to be slaves. That's why so many Negroes got upset when Kanye West said what he said about so-called black people wanting to be in slavery. He was not necessarily talking about the actual change. He's talking about the mental change. Niggas get on TV, they talk all the hot shit in the world, the Juneteenth and, the quote-unquote equality and all this other nonsense. But equality is not a sign of ruling class mentality. You're going to hear Shannon Sharp. He has a slave mentality if I've ever seen one. This dude is in awe of so-called white men with money.
He thinks outside of the box, and I think it's rubbing a lot of people the wrong way, because some people do want to go back and play. And skipping.
Yeah, like your boy LeBron James. And that's the real reason why you're saying what you're saying, how you're saying it, Shannon Sharp. Because you're desperate for LeBron James to get a 4th championship. You know that this is integral for his career. Because as of right now, there's still a compelling argument for Larry Bird over LeBron James for those of us who really know basketball. There's more than a compelling argument for Magic Johnson over LeBron James, as well as Kareem and Bill Russell. LeBron needs to win a 4th title to, at the very least, end any notion that Larry Bird could be or could have been a better small forward than him. So he needs this 4th championship. He also needs it because, let's be for real, Kevin Durant is hot on his heels. If LeBron James does not win a championship this year and then KD comes back relatively healthy and wins a championship with Brooklyn next year, now we're starting to have conversations about who's had the better career, Kevin Durant or LeBron James. A lot of people might not like that. They'll say, well, look at the stats. LeBron's been much better here, there, and here. But at the end of the day, they're going to have basically equivalent points per game, almost equivalent shooting percentages, despite the fact that KD shoots way more outside shots, and they're going to have the same amount of championships. So this is a pivotal season for LeBron James, even though it's been a compromised season.
My thing is, has always been, if you don't want to go back and play, if you feel that the COVID is a concern of yours, you feel that your voice is going to be muted going back to the bubble with everything that social injustice is going on, don't go. But don't try to put the bosh on anybody else and try to speak bad of the NBA for them wanting to go back. So I just think that Kendrick and KD's protecting Kyrie. They're best friends. And so, you know, I'm going to protect my best friend. I'm not going to let you take shots at him from a distance. Yep. I'm going to try to put the kibosh on that so it doesn't get too far out of hand. But this is going to continue to go on. Perk has a very strong opinion, and he's not.
Well, no, it's not really going to continue to go on as long as you think. I think that Kendrick Perkins has been under siege, especially on his social media. A lot of people have been coming at his head for the last month because of his hot takes. And I think that it's going to cause him to maybe sit back and reevaluate how he decides to express himself.
Down from KD. KD understands that, but I think that's what's going on. That's what he means by selling out. Perk, you played. Now you in the media, now you giving up all the secrets. You know you're not supposed to do that.
That's the irony. This dude, Kendrick Perkins, comes on TV and calls Michael Jordan a snitch and a liar. And literally, Kendrick Perkins is the biggest basketball snitch on television. This guy relayed a story about how Paul Pierce spit at LeBron James and how they almost got in a fight in between the locker rooms at halftime or after the game, whenever it was. This guy, Kendrick Perkins, relates a story about how Ray Allen and Rajon Rondo got into a boxing match with each other. But Michael Jordan is the snitch because all he does is confirm a story that everybody already knew about the 1984-85 Chicago Bulls being filled with cokeheads. Everybody knew that shit already. It was printed. But all these clowns are trying to call Jordan a snitch because of that. And then especially you, Kendrick Perkins, the biggest snitch on television.
There may be some of that going on. But I think it runs and cuts much deeper than you just suggested. I believe that Kevin Durant means that Kendrick Perkins sold Kevin out, for LeBron James. That's what it's going down to. Yeah. Okay.
There's a little bit of that. There's definitely some relevance to that. No doubt about it.
Yeah. For 4 years in Oklahoma City, I'm going to remind everybody, Kendrick Perkins was Kevin Durant's enforcer. He was his bodyguard.
Right.
He was his personal protector. That relationship ran so deep that when Kevin did win the MVP in, 2014,
and deservedly so. This notion that LeBron James should have 7 or 8 MVPs, that's something that's been postulated by a lot of these clowns in the media for the last 7 or 8 years, and it's a complete joke. Every year that a player has won the MVP award other than LeBron James, they've deserved it. The best case that you can make for LeBron James being quote-unquote robbed of an MVP is in 2011 when Derrick Rose got the MVP. And even that season, I thought that Derrick Rose deserved it.
Thanked Kendrick in his big MVP. It was the best speech Kevin's ever given. It was straight from the heart, made everybody cry, brought tears to Russell Westbrook's eyes. You remember that?
Yep.
And in that speech, he said of Kendrick Perkins, I hated you before you got here, because remember in Boston, he was seen as this sort of glowering, menacing enforcer type, right? This bully. And yet Kevin concluded, but the moment you got here, you changed my whole perception of you. That's over.
That's definitely over. There's no doubt about that. And there's a little bit of jealousy there as well between Kendrick and KD, because once again, Kendrick has never and will never have the options of a Kevin Durant. And you'll find that a lot as well in life. When you elevate as a person and you start to utilize the gifts that you have, and now the additional options that you gain from using those gifts, people who were with you when you were at a certain level are going to start to try to hate on you or start to try to come against you in some way, because they're upset that they never chose or had the courage to utilize their gifts, and now they're stuck in that state in their mind for perpetuity. And that's Kendrick Perkins to a degree. He knows that he would never have been offered a contract to go sign with the Golden State Warriors. A lot of these guys know that already. LeBron James comes to, oh, well, you know, my move to Miami is different from KD's move to Golden State. No, it's not. It's the same shit. Oh, well, you know, Golden State had already won a championship and they had won 73 games. Right, but when you guys formed the Miami Heat, or the Heatles per se, in 2010, the reason why you had the press conference saying not 4, not 5, not 6, and all that other bullshit that you was talking, is because you knew that you had 3 of the top 10 players in the NBA on the same team. I'm not even sure if the Golden State Warriors, even with KD, had 3 of the top 10 players in the NBA. You have KD and Steph, who are 2 of the top 3 or 2 of the top 4 players in the NBA. But where do you put Klay Thompson and Draymond Green? I don't think that Klay Thompson is a top 10 player. Back in 2010, Chris Bosh was a top 10 player in the NBA. He probably would have been around 9 or 10, but he was a top 10 player in the NBA. LeBron was considered number 1. D Wade probably somewhere around 5 or 6. So everybody knew that they were going to win a championship. Now, of course, everyone expected the Golden State Warriors to win with KD, but I've always said this. Please keep in mind, when LeBron James went to the Cleveland Cavaliers in 2014, in the preseason polls where they were trying to discern who should be the favorites to win the championship, before the 2014-2015 season, the Cleveland Cavaliers were the favorites to win the championship. And even after Golden State won in 2015, heading into the 2015-2016 season, the Cavaliers were still the favorites to win the championship. So LeBron has always been on super teams. When Kevin Durant made the chess move that he made, which was a brilliant move, because it's always a brilliant move to put yourself on a team that's going to cast you as the anti-hero for a certain amount of time, a limited amount of time, and then you can go recast yourself after you win championships. Because at the end of the day, if KD wins a championship or 2 in Brooklyn, he's going to be considered a 3 or 4 time champion. Nobody's going to say, oh, well, he won a couple of cheap championships in Golden State. Nobody's going to say that, because Golden State needed KD. They were never going to beat LeBron again if they didn't get KD.
That's kaput.
He changed it again, huh?
He changed it radically, dramatically, upside down again, because now, in a little bit of a surprise, if not a shock to me, Kendrick Perkins has become LeBron's #1 PR man and #1 fan, super fan.
Of course, Shannon gonna start getting jealous with Skip saying that Kendrick Perkins is LeBron James' #1 super fan. No, Skip, that's me.
On every TV show he does, he's done ours a few times. He does ESPN. It seems like he's everywhere.
Yeah.
And all over social media. He does nothing but protect LeBron. And it's starting to come across to me as if Kendrick almost considers himself part of LeBron's inner circle. It's almost...
Because he probably is.
There's Maverick Carter, and there's Rich Paul, and there's Randy Mims, and there's Perk. There's Kendrick Perkins, like he's the 4th horseman of the inner circle. And if I didn't know any better, because this has gotten so personal, it almost comes across like Perk is on LeBron's payroll. I'm not suggesting, but that's...
Thank you, sir. I've been saying that for the last 3 years. This is why Skip Bayless is needed on TV, because he's the only person who speaks the truth about LeBron James when it comes to basketball. Now, for whatever reason, LeBron James has Skip Bayless entranced when it comes to his quote-unquote social role or social standing as an alleged activist. But when it comes to his understanding of who LeBron James is as a basketball player, Skip Bayless can't be beat. He's able to evaluate a lot of the bullshit more accurately than anyone else in the media, because he has the courage to say shit that is obvious. Like, it's obvious to me, not even necessarily that Perk is getting paid by LeBron per se to say certain things, but Perkins most likely had his spot at ESPN allotted to him by LeBron James and some of the connections that he has. Like, it's just obvious. Not just Perk, but Damon Jones and some other players as well.
Feels like LeBron actually directs him to say, oh, I need you to do that for me and that for me and that for me. The big picture is, you pointed out some of the things he's done. Remember, I've been the biggest proponent of Kevin Durant's the best player on the planet. A lot of people have thought that, and Kevin won back-to-back MVPs with big game threes in LeBron's house. But the point is that as the bandwagon started to roll for Kevin being the best player on the planet, all of a sudden, Kendrick is turning up the heat on Kevin, as you suggest, and now on Kevin's best friend, Kyrie. It almost felt like, now that Kyrie has dared to sort of challenge LeBron's authority,
and that's exactly what it's about,
challenge his preeminence as clearly the number one activist in all of sports.
I'm not quite sure if Kyrie's trying to challenge LeBron as the number one activist. I just think that he sees things differently. And Kyrie actually is trying to go all out with his shit. Unlike LeBron James, who understands that he has different people pulling his strings. I've said this repeatedly. LeBron James' number one role and number one gift is as an actor. He's a phenomenal actor. He's really able to convince so-called black people that he's quote-unquote pro-black. Again, he is not quote-unquote pro-black. He knows almost nothing about real black history, quote-unquote black history. What he is a liberal Negro. He's interested in escapades and rituals and hijinks. Like 3 years ago when he claimed that somebody spray painted the front gate of his Brentwood mansion with the word nigga. Still, no footage, no arrest, no nothing. But that's how he rolls. He's a Marxist. He works for a Marxist conglomerate known as Nike Incorporated.
By saying, hey, I'm going to lead a contingent of players, a coalition of players who shouldn't go to Orlando. And again, it's easy for Kyrie to do this because he's not going. And again, to Perk's point, yeah, they told him several weeks ago, you just can't go. It's too risky for you to go and just sit on the bench with your teammate. Right. So he's out anyway. Kevin's obviously out anyway. But now Kyrie, on the conference call last Friday night to 100 players, not featuring LeBron James, he's trying to convince a horde of players to say, let's sit out.
Is he trying to convince them or is he trying to represent them? I don't think that Kyrie Irving was able to get 100 people on a conference call, 100 NBA players on a conference call, to hear him try to convince them. I think that he's representing them.
Boycott Orlando to make a statement by withholding what we do best, what people want us to do, which is provide them the entertainment of NBA basketball at a time they need it most. Let's withhold that just to make a statement. No. Right now, we remain focused, mind, body, soul, on campaigning for racial justice. Right. So all of a sudden it put, as I told you 2 shows ago, it put LeBron in a little bit of an awkward position because he has been the number one activist, and all of a sudden...
Well, let's put him in an awkward position because it's made him actually have to come out of the woodworks and speak about something that he knows nothing about, which is what he's alleging that he's about, that being quote-unquote black empowerment and quote-unquote black liberation. LeBron is not about that. LeBron is about his money. It's just that his hustle is different. See, Michael Jordan was more straightforward. When he said Republicans buy sneakers too, even though he said it in jest, what he was saying is that I'm not going to allow anyone to fuck up my money over some politics. With LeBron James, his hustle involves the race thing. Because the money is so much more global now, Nike gives him more leeway to make statements that he knows he's not even really about himself. And it's more political than it is societal. That's why you see LeBron James stomping for Hillary Clinton. You don't even see LeBron James really associating with the quote-unquote Black Lives Matter shit. Once again, I haven't seen him at a protest yet. He might pop up at one if it means that he can associate himself or associate himself through the Black Lives Matter movement with the Democratic candidate for this year's election. But LeBron is purely political. That's why he's involved with this quote-unquote voting rights organization. He was talked into doing that by certain powerful factions within the Democratic Party. or certain powerful representatives within the Democratic Party, i.e. Gavin Newsom. Who was it that he had on his show, on The Shop, or he took that photo with on The Shop, when it came to the California athletes being able to make money off of their likeness? Was it not Gavin Newsom? Gavin Newsom, the nephew of Nancy Pelosi. I touched on Gavin Newsom in the series that I did on Floyd Mayweather. Very high level dark witch, as is LeBron James. Of course, what I'm saying is alleged.
It's like, oh, wait, I do want to play. And obviously, I told you, I don't blame LeBron for wanting to play. He needs to go win another championship. His clock is ticking. He's at the end of year 17, and they should be the favorites to win this year's championship. And it could help him in his quest to overcome that ghost up in Chicago.
Well, we know that that's what that's really about. LeBron has to get the fourth one this year. If he doesn't get the fourth championship this year, he's going to be the head of the 3-6 Mafia for the rest of his life. Because I don't see LeBron going back to the finals if he does not at least get to the finals this year and win it. Because he's not getting any younger. All these other teams are getting more mature. The Denver Nuggets are one superstar player away, or the maturation of one of their star players away, from possibly breaking through. But they need another player on that squad who can really go out there and get it. Somebody who they can throw the basketball to in crucial moments to say, get us a basket. They're still growing. But they're the team to watch over the next 3 to 4 years. But just getting back to LeBron, he knows he has to get it this year.
Chance goes Michael Jordan. So I'm not condemning LeBron for this, but all of a sudden Kyrie sensed an opening where I can take over leadership in the NBA. And it felt like it was almost LeBron telling Kendrick, you got to go put him in his place. You got to go make him.
Yeah, go sick him.
That's how it came across to me. And it's all about Kyrie being Kevin's best friend. And then all of a sudden we get the low blow of the bird brain quote that you repeat. I don't even want to repeat it. And then...
Well, that's okay. Shannon will repeat it if you want him to repeat it because he liked it. Anything attacking Kyrie or attacking anyone that he believes or he observes to be against the supremacy of quote-unquote King James, he'll say it with no problem.
Kendrick Perkins went so far as to suggest that the murder of an 18-year-old African-American woman in LeBron's hometown of Akron that just happened, what are we up to, Thursday, 4 days ago, right, that it didn't get the national attention it deserved because Kyrie dominated that news cycle with being a distraction. He was the distractor in a way that he made everybody focus attention on a boycott of Orlando and the bubble when the country should have been talking about the woman who got murdered in Akron. Well, that's just preposterous to me.
It is preposterous, and it was a Mr. Fantastic level reach, but he was desperate. At this point, Kendrick LeBron, as Skip Bayless calls him, he's willing to say anything just to keep his name relevant, and that's why he has to watch himself, because he's in danger of getting cast out by the core group that he's going to need support from, that being so-called black men on Twitter and Instagram and things of that nature. You have to be very, very careful. This is a very tenuous time for Kendrick Perkins. I'm not quite sure if he realizes that, but he might, because he recently came out almost crying, talking about he's been the victim of racial stereotyping in his community because his family is the only black family living there. It's very obvious he was looking for sympathy.
Stretch, that's a leap. Maybe that murder did deserve more attention than it got because I didn't hear a whole lot about it. I don't know the why of it yet. I don't know what happened. I don't know exactly how it transpired or what the motivation was behind it. So we don't know.
Also keep in mind, as I've mentioned in other videos, Kendrick Perkins being a former Celtic, despite